Hey, what's going on, everybody? Today we're going to be making another epoxy project. You guys have seen my channel, you know that I've been making a lot of American flags. Today we're going to do something different. So, by the caption of this video, you'll know what we're making. So I got my board, I got it painted red. I painted it red because I'm going to put red mica powder on the first layer of epoxy. So that's going to be our background color. So I painted red just so it's not going to, you're not going to see wood through my first layer of epoxy, because it could be thin spots, who knows. If I don't put enough mica pigment in the epoxy, it could show through. So it's just like a fail-safe. But other than that, the kind of epoxy I use for these projects is Total Boat tabletop epoxy. I'm not saying it's the cheapest, it's not the most expensive, but it's good, it works just fine. So that's all I need it for. So I'm prepping my board now for the epoxy to be put on, but first I tape it. So you can see I've taped halfway up the edge and I have it hanging off the bottom. So you see it's coming off the end here, and I'm gonna do another layer, but it's gonna be from here and up. So that's going to hold the epoxy on top of the wood. And then we're going to wait for the epoxy to get tacky so it's not going to all spill over. And we're going to peel that first layer off, let that sit for a little while, and then we're going to peel this bottom layer off. And I do this bottom layer just because epoxy will come around and it'll drip underneath on the underside of the wood. And it's just a pain to get off, especially if it's hardened up on you. I mean, you can take like a paint scraper during the process and just glide it underneath. People do that. I've done it, but you got to pay more attention to it. You got to baby this thing and watch it. This way, you just, set it, leave it for a while, come back. Makes it easier. All right, so I got it all taped up. You can see I got that second layer on, so it's, let's see here. It's coming up over the side here. So that's going to hold our epoxy in until it gets tacky enough to where we can pull it off, and it's not all going to just flow over. So now I'm going to mix up some epoxy and then pour in the mica powder, and we'll pour it on top of this and smooth it out. Before we mix this up, don't forget to wear your gloves and your respirator. You don't want to be inhaling all those fumes, unless you're in like a big warehouse or good ventilation. All right, now that I have stirred it up, it's decently clear, so I'm gonna let this sit for about 10 minutes, let a lot of those bubbles work their way to the surface before we put in the mica powder. All right, we've waited about 10 minutes. So now we're gonna add our mica powder. This is the only red I had. It's called Red Russet. I got this at Hobby Lobby. We'll see how it turns out. There's no scientific method on how much to put in, so just get it to where it's the tint that you want. I want a thick tint, so hopefully this will do. That's what it looks like. Now we'll just mix it all in, see if it looks good. You want to scrape the sides, scrape the bottom, make sure none of that powder is still there. Oh, this is looking pretty good so far. Pretty good. Okay. Yeah, look at that. Alright, so now we're going to pour it onto our piece of wood and spread it all around. Alright, so now we have poured it, we've smoothed it out, we've got it. Make sure you hit your corners. You want to make sure all your edges have epoxy. Sometimes epoxy does like to not flow where you want it, but as long as you push it in, it'll all flow evenly. So now we're just going to take our torch, quickly go over the surface, get any bubbles that may have formed on top out, and then we're gonna let this sit and get tacky for probably 2 hours, 2.5 hours before we peel the first layer of tape. Alright, so I've waited a couple hours, and if I push this, it's a little spongy, but it's not liquidy where it's going to drip. So we're going to peel the top layer of tape all the way around and see what it's like. You can see when I peel it, the tape is coming off nicely, and the epoxy isn't running off. Now there might be a couple of spots that slowly drip, but it's not going to completely just run over the edge, which is what we want. So I might be able to peel both these layers of tape right now. See when I'm all done. Alright, tape is all peeled. I peeled both layers of tape. I looked at the edge, there's nothing really dripping over it, so we're good. So now all we got to do right now, all we can do, is wait till tomorrow for this epoxy to be hard enough for us to put our stencil on and do our paint work. So, see you guys in the next step tomorrow. Alright, so it's the next day. Epoxy is hard enough to work with. Now this stuff isn't fully cured, they say, for 72 hours, but that's if you're gonna, like, you know, use that as like a countertop or something, put stuff on it. This is hard enough to work with. We're gonna get our stencil, and here it is. This is what we're gonna work with. This big "Don't Tread on Me" stencil. My vision for this is we're going to make the snake, the body of the snake, yellow we're gonna make the little scales down here black, and then the stars and the lettering we're gonna do a gold. I think that'll look pretty cool. This is all just on a whim, what I was thinking, so we're gonna roll with it, see how it turns out. All right, so you can see I got everything taped off. The stencil is centered. I used the tape measure to make sure it was centered. You don't want to just eyeball it, because if someone's going to mount this or have it sitting up, you might be easily noticeable if it's like an inch off, you know. But here I've taped off all the areas that I don't want to do with our first color, which is, we're going to be using this yellow. So the body of the snake here. So once we spray the body, we'll let that dry. We'll peel off the areas for our next color and tape over the yellow. All right, we've got our yellow that we spray painted, all covered up with tape. Next, we're gonna do black. So, nice part about this is once we have the black painted and we let that dry, we can just have all this taped. I won't have to worry about taping up small little areas at a time, because it's just gonna be the stars and the letters next. Alright, we've gotten all the colors spray painted on. I believe the gold is dry enough, so I'm going to start peeling away all the tape, and then I'll bring you guys back for the final reveal when I lift up the stencil. Alright, I've gotten all the tape peeled off. Let's see how it looks underneath. Hopefully there wasn't any bleeding. Looks pretty good. Pretty good. Alright, I've gone ahead and done my 2 layers of tape. I'm going to put the final clear coat on. I'm just going to skip past that. It's the same process as the first red coat when we started. So you'll all see it when it's finished. Alright y'all, it's the next day. This project is finally done. It's nice and cured. Colorway looks good. Image came out nicely. Thanks for sticking with me to the end of the video. I appreciate anyone who likes, subscribes. I am a new channel, so just getting started. On to the next project.